Hello, listening to and welcome to the first ever Gothiverse podcast. Now, this is the place where I'll be talking about pop culture through the eyes of an artist. Now, I'm just here to have fun and talk about things I love through an artist mindset. Now, for this introduction, one of the things I'll be covering throughout this podcast, along with many other topics, is I've been trying to watch a lot more anime this year. Last year, I've been just mainly focusing on grinding hard with my art content skills. And while I did watch some anime, I didn't get to watch a whole bunch as I would like to, and I would like to catch up with some anime that I've been watching, as long as trying to watch some new stuff as well, because I've been saw the loop with anime recently and in all the past seasons, so I definitely want to do some catching up. So yeah, I'm hoping to get to do that throughout this session as I talk about some anime that I like. Not much in a spoilery sense, but more, as I mentioned, more in an artistic sense. So I'll definitely hope to be able to do that. And now, for example, I'll just give you one that I recently finished and finally caught up with, which is a wonderful retro anime called City Hunter. Now, the anime is very action-packed and very funny, and I recommend to watch it if you're looking for some classic anime to watch. I'm currently now on the movies for the series, and there's so many, so it's still a lot of fun to see. But one thing I wanted to talk about with them, as again, because I'm talking about it through an artistic lens, is I really like how a lot of the openings and endings of the show are designed. And this is not just for City Hunter, but it's also part of the times as well for anime back then throughout the 90s and 80s. It's really around that in the 70s and 60s to an extent. But during the age of cell animation, just in general with anime and even with Western cartoons in general, I just love how they're able to cover a lot of different unique techniques that they can do with that medium that they get the chance to, just because again you have to rely on what you have at that time, because again computers were just starting to slowly get advanced and they were not as well advanced as it was now, so they were still kind of in the early stages, so you couldn't rely on them too much to do things like how we have now. So with the way our animations were made, you were able to do so many different unique techniques, insert images, do unique cool effects that you can only do traditionally, and use all the techniques that you have around you, and allow animators and artists just to be able to uniquely create something, using what tools they had around them and what materials they have that they can do with, and whatever they can allow to get this kind of effect that you'll now be able to easily attain in a digital software. But back then, you couldn't really get those same effects easier, so you had to rely on some quick techniques and certain materials to get a certain effect that you wanted in your credit openings and ending sequences. And the one thing I like about this that is being traditionally is that because again you get to have these cool unique effects that you can only have throughout this kind of medium of cell animation that you couldn't have really much in digital animation. You'll be able to still get some of it, but you won't get the same effect and the same viruses, because again now you can just easily do this. It isn't as much complex as you needed to do back then, so it makes all that process relatively easier. And pretty much with that, I really much enjoyed the effect of cell animation. I think it's really cool. As an artist myself, I don't really animate to that extent, but I always loved the effect with it, and that's why I just wanted to talk about things like this, because again we don't really get to hear a whole lot about this that often, and with the shifting of the times, I feel like it's very important just to dive into more of that creative aspect, especially when talking about these kind of contents, especially when we consume them. I would like to talk about them more in that creative energy and that creative light, as opposed to just more of someone just binge watching or watching through it, but not pressing analyzing what's happening and the things that are happening, and talking about it depth behind the creator's lore and the creator's intention and things like that. So that's definitely something I want to do on this podcast as well, and just relate and express my feelings on things. Yeah, so now again on this podcast, as I mentioned, we're going to be doing a lot of that, so be prepared as I go through a lot of different mediums that I like, including new media that out, and just talking about the creative aspect of like how it was made and how I feel about it, and just talking about some exciting moments from those works and how I can leverage those insights and things like that. Now, personally, I enjoy games and anime and just movies as well, and I just love talking about those works and love sharing and showcasing those works with people as well. So, if you haven't heard of me before, I am an artist and illustrator also my own manga as well, and I love doing that. And that's why I want to create this kind of podcast to allow myself to consume much more than I have not been doing recently, and allow myself just to consume more stuff again as I continue growing as an artist, continue crafting and telling the type of stories I want to make, and as well as those illustrations as well. So I'm pretty excited to do that. I'm going to be talking about other things as well that I didn't get to talk about because I feel like that I should do so. And also, I'm going to talk about one certain franchise as well, maybe in the next episode live, just because it is the 20th anniversary for it. So I'm not going to spoil what that series is, but if you know the series I'm talking about, then be aside with me as I'm going to gush about it, because I don't think people talk about the series enough, or at least I didn't know people who watch it. Because when I was younger, I only knew myself. I watch it and I always loved the series. It's pretty much one of the things that inspired me to do art and content and stuff. I enjoy. And that's why I continue watching shows and anime and just animation in general, because it allows to connect the impact with my art and representing the style and content I'm into because of shows like it, and pretty much influence my life and living. And I definitely want to talk about it, as I said again, next episode. So I'm looking forward to doing it because I'm very excited. And I also want to make some fan of her too. So I don't know, I'll have that by the next episode. Maybe after, but I'll also have to gush over it before then. Now, with this podcast, I am going to be doing this once a month. And you may be feeling, oh, that's a pretty long time for the next episode. Why is that? Now, the reason for that is because, again, this one has to go new to me, and I want to be able to allow myself the time and grace to be able to give you guys the compact information, and as well as myself, allow myself to have that time to gather my thoughts, processes, and share what I've been talking about, and share my overall insights and feelings. And I want to be able to do that in a timely manner. So that's why the podcast is a month long. Also, to help coincide with my other duties I have going on in my own life, that I need this podcast to be fitting in that certain time frame. Because this is not the only thing I do. Again, along with me doing art, other content, I also do content creating other things as well, apart from live streaming. So I really want to be able to make sure I have things separated and spread out, allow me to do the things that I need to do, but have them in a timely manner and not be impacted. So yeah. And with that, guys, that was at the end of the first episode for the Gothiverse. I know this episode's pretty short, but it was just an introduction of what's going to be happening throughout this podcast and what we'll be doing. And again, it's just a month-long podcast, so I'll be up here before we meet again. But looking at each month, I can't give exactly what date it will be, just because, again, I don't have a set schedule yet for that. Just that I wanted it to be moving. And I do hope that you guys will stick around and enjoy the show and enjoy the podcast and enjoy the moments. And if there's anything you want to hear me talk about, just let me know. If I'm aware of it, and if I'm not, I'm definitely looking into something that I may not know about, and that could be interesting and new that I never heard of. But I definitely can't wait to hear from more of you guys and see you all in the next podcast recording. And if you have anything that you want me to see or be